Welcome to Sanibel and Captiva's original podcast, The Insider's Guide to the Islands. I'll be chatting with island experts from fishing guides to shellers to local personalities. I aim to get the insider information to make your island experience incredible. Okay, today I have the pleasure of interviewing Dorrie Hipschman, the Executive Director of the Bailey Matthews National Shell Museum. Welcome, Dorrie.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So tell me your backstory. Tell me, how did you end up here on Sanibel?
My backstory. That's a great... I was lucky and blessed to end up on Sanibel. It's sort of the dream of a lifetime. I have always been a water and beach person myself, and but my background was in marketing and advertising, and then I have been in nonprofit management for too many years, and have been a museum director for many, many years. And they did a national search when this position came open, and I was living in Gainesville and St. Augustine at the time and applied for the position, and I am just thrilled to be here. I'm coming up on 5 years.
5 years, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And let's dive right into the Shell Museum. Tell us a little bit about it and what it is and where it is. And
well, the first thing about the Shell Museum is people have no understanding of what a shell museum is. The easiest way to explain it is we are a natural history museum, just like the Field Museum in Chicago or the natural history museums that you would go to in New York City. The difference is that we are a natural history museum that is focused on one group of animals, the animals that create shells. Those are called mollusks. So we're a nationally accredited museum, and we are just devoted to shells.
Wow. And you would say your main focus is mollusks, not shells?
Mollusks. Well, the amazing thing to me when people come to Sanibel, or even people who live on Sanibel, I talk to my fellow Rotarians, and many of them don't know. 9 out of 10 people that you ask the question to, where does the shell come from? Where does the shell come from? They have no idea. They think it's a rock, or it's an inanimate object that somehow has always been on the beach. And what we try to do is to take the passion and the love that they have for that object, oh, isn't it pretty, isn't it beautiful, and introduce them to the amazing creature that creates that shell. That amazing creature is a mollusk. Mollusks make up the gastropods and the bivalves, the shells you find on the beach all the time. But the same group of animals includes squid, octopus, cuttlefish, nudibranchs. There are more mollusks in the ocean than any other group of animals. Wow. And yet we know almost nothing about them. So that's what we do day in and day out, is try to teach people about the incredible diversity of the world right under their feet on the beach or right under the waves all around them on Sanibel.
And is there research that goes on with the museum too?
Yes, we have research in several different areas. First, we support research of other scientists around the world. Our collection is fully accessible online now, digitally. So if you are, for instance, studying, a species of mussel and you're in Korea, you can go online, you can look it up. And then if you're with an affiliated university or something, you can request photographs from us, or if someone needs to do specific work with a shell, we can actually send them that specimen. Natural history museums do that with each other around the world. So that's one way we support all kinds of research. We are also increasingly doing our own research as we add to our live collection. We are doing more and more primary research into mollusks and invertebrates.
Very cool, very cool. So when was the museum founded?
They started working on the museum in the late 1980s. They had a preliminary office on Periwinkle, and then the museum opened in 1995.
Okay, and how long has, Sanibel obviously has been here forever, but how long has it been known for shelling? I mean, there's only a few places in the world that are quite so prolific for shells. So, yes. So how long has it been known as being? Oh,
I think as far back as there have been people on Sanibel, it has been known for shells. Even the first settlers, the Calusas, Shells were an integral part of everything that they did. They were ocean people, and they ate shells. They used them for tools. They used them for decoration. So shells have been part of Sanibel since Sanibel became a barrier island, since there were people here.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I was more talking about the when did the tourists actually come?
I think, yes, the early, the tourists to Florida really started to come in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and Sanibel and Captiva have always been known as a shelling capital.
Even before the bridge, people would make the trip.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we wanted to come to Sanibel because of shells. That was the connection already. So.
Okay.
And I've been pretty old.
Yeah, I'll stop. So is that so? I mean, just in case people haven't been to Sanibel, geographically, Sanibel is prone to shelling just by the shape of it and the direction and the tidal walls. Can you explain a little bit about that for me?
Really, basically, it's the shelling. I think it's the shelling capital of the world, because first of all, the islands, many barrier islands, if you're going up and down the north-south of Florida, Sanibel sort of tips east-west. Because of that, we become a natural scoop. When the wind and the waves are just right, they roll up on our shores. We're also that way because the Gulf is so shallow that shells can roll a long, long way. For instance, the Genonias that are so prized on Sanibel, those probably come from 100 feet of water. They're deep water species. So when you think about how far that shell has to roll to get to the beach on Sanibel, that's one of the advantages, is that we don't have a drop off the way they do, say, in the Atlantic.
And there's a rule of thumb that fishermen normally use, is it's for every 10 miles, it's 10 feet of water. So it gives you an idea of how far.
It's a long way out.
It's not like the other coast where it drops off into a shelf.
Yes, where you have a shelf dropping down.
Which is our gain, I guess.
Yes, in terms of shells and shelling, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so that's how the Shell Museum came into fruition. Tell me a little bit, whereabouts is it located? What are the hours?
Okay. The museum is located on Sanibel Captiva Road. So if you're on the way to Ding Darling, we are on the left-hand side as you go out to Ding Darling, which is a location most people know. We are open 364 days a year at this point, and we're open usually from 10 to 5. Holidays, it's from noon to 5. The only day we're closed right now, and we're still looking at that, but right now we're only closed on Thanksgiving. Okay. Every other day we're open. So.
Perfect. Wow. And what is a shell creator? What is a
shell creator is that's from our website. We have the shell collectors meeting the shell creators. A shell creator is a mollusk. It's the animal that makes the shell, and it makes the shell and it lives in the shell its entire life. A shell for a mollusk is like your backbone. If I tried to separate you from your backbone, you wouldn't be very happy about it. So it's the same thing. There's a common misperception that the animals, when they grow, they move out of their shell and they find another one because we're so used to hermit crabs. But that's not true. Actually, when you find a shell on the beach, it means that the animal that grew that shell is deceased.
Gotcha. Okay. And you have 30 permanent exhibits at the museum. Can you tell me a little bit about them? What's it cover?
It covers all kinds of things. It covers everything from micromollusks, which are you can actually find a lot of really interesting, very small shells at our lighthouse beach. But a micromollusk is an animal that will, be very, very tiny even in adulthood, all the way up to, the trident trumpets. And we have the largest Florida horse conch that's ever been found. That's in the museum. Doesn't mean there isn't a bigger one out there somewhere, but it's the largest one that has come ashore. And we have lots of exhibits on how people interact with shells. The anthropological side of shells is very interesting. The first currency that was used around the world was actually cowries. You've probably seen the little money cowries that are still made into necklaces and that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And cowries and shells have traveled around the world as people have traveled. So you would find shells from the Mediterranean in an Indian population in Arizona. It's an interesting exhibits on how people and shells are interrelated. We have exhibits, extensive exhibits on our local shells, because that's what people often want to come and see in the museum, is what am I going to see on Sanibel or Captiva. And then we have our newest exhibits that we built in 2013 are about the life cycle of an animal and how it eats, how it moves, all of the various aspects of the anatomy of a shell.
Sure. And then obviously there's some superstar shells here on the island that there's tell me a little bit about the most popular ones, and we all know the rare ones. I mean, there's
right
on the superstar list. How do they go? who's
I call shelling on Sanibel as a competitive sport.
Yes, for sure.
The superstar that's on the top of everyone's list has to be the Junonia. That's the shell people seem to prize most, and it's not necessarily a rare shell out in the Gulf, but as I said, it's a deep water species, so it tends to be more rare on Sanibel. A lion's paw is always something that people are very excited about. Some of the carrier shells. Some people love to collect the different kinds of Wentel traps. You get into individual people's passions and what they're looking for.
And some are popular for different reasons, if I'm right. I mean, some are just fragile, so it's rare to see them coming up on the
Like
beach.
an angel wing is very fragile. They grow here. They're in the sand, but they disintegrate very easily. So that's hard to find a whole one. And it's a bivalve, so finding both halves is very rare.
Together, okay.
Because when a bivalve dies, its shell opens, and then they get washed, and so you often find one half or the other. Like a giant cockle, you almost never will find the whole thing. You'll just find one half of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's rare. People love the olive shells because they're so glossy and shiny, and they're just beautiful. And those are right under your feet every single day.
So what is the how is the state of the health of shelling? And I mean, are there any concerns environmentally as far as?
We get asked that question all the time. In terms of the shells on Sanibel, there are no definitive studies. Dr. Leal, who is our science director, has indicated, when you hear all the time people say, oh, the shelling's not as good as it used to be. And his analysis is there's probably as many shells on the beach as there ever were, but we have so many more visitors picking them up.
Right.
It used to, if you had 3,000 people on the island versus 20,000 people on the island, that shell has much more of a chance to sit there on the beach and wait for you for 2 hours. Now, when we have people out at 3:00 in the morning with headlights on, shelling, it's a little more competitive.
Oh, and I was at the Sanibel Lighthouse, and I'm there all the time taking pictures, obviously with my job. But there was a family of, and there was 3 vehicles, and like you said, I got there at sunrise, so it was still dark. They had lamps on their heads, and they had vanity plates with Sheller 1 or Sheller 2. I mean, these people are pros. It's intense.
It's a serious thing. That said, mollusks are endangered around the world. We are losing mollusks faster than we can name new species. For a number of reasons, and some of the most endangered animals on the world are actually freshwater bivalves, clams, mussels, those kinds of things. In Hawaii, we're losing the land snails. In the central part of the United States, we are losing many of the freshwater bivalves. We are losing there are tiny free-floating mollusks that make up a critical component of the food web for the entire ocean. And their shells are almost transparent, and they're float. They don't land on the ground. And their shells are calcium. So as our oceans acidify, they're dissolving. And when you think about trying to save whales or dolphins or any of the charismatic large creatures, if we don't save that core of the food web, the entire ocean food web comes crashing down. There's already evidence if you look at the Pacific Northwest scallop industry now, when they're harvesting scallops, some of them those shells are literally dissolving as they harvest them because of climate change, because of ocean acidification. Here in Southwest Florida, the release of fresh water in times that the animals are not evolved to handle is very detrimental. We obviously have issues with our oyster populations. we used to have scallops in Pine Island Sound.
Oh, really?
And we have very few scallops anymore. So the challenges
Which is strange because we went scalloping 100 miles north of here.
Yes, Cedar Key, off in that area, there's lots of scallops. We have a lot of freshwater releases that are impacting all of the bivalve populations here.
Ah, I didn't
that's
know
the
that.
part of the
So I knew
challenge.
it did the fish, but I didn't realise the scallops and all the rest of it.
Affects
And
everything.
any other reasons? I mean, is it just a combination? I mean, is there anything that they can do to combat that, or is that still in the research stage? Is that...
Well, I think a lot of what's being done, SCCF is certainly taking the lead on it, Captains for Clean Water. The museum is trying to educate people about the importance of really looking at what are we doing with runoff, what are we doing with Lake Okeechobee, how do we sort of repair some of the damage that, unintended consequences of creating Lake Okeechobee and the east-west flow instead of the north-south flow.
Mm-hmm.
All of it's all a connected ecosystem that which affects the tarpon, affects the mollusks, affects the dolphins.
So it's a hot topic around here.
It's
but
a very hot topic around here.
If you're not from this area, you might not know about it. But basically, back in I think it was during the Second World War, or around about that sort of time, they dug a lake called Lake Okeechobee and tried to control the water flow going from north to south. For development purposes, so that they
took it east to west instead.
Yeah, and took it east to west, so there's a big lake in the middle, and it filters it out. And with it has come a ton of environmental problems, which we won't go into here, but you could certainly look into.
That said, I'm a boater, and I do actually like being able to go east-west through Lake Okeechobee and
That's
the canals.
true. Me too. Yeah, you can actually come out the other side by.
It's much
Lighthouse
faster than
Point.
going down and around.
Exactly. Okay, so. What about I'm out on the beach a lot. Who are the? Explain a little bit about the people in the bright blue shirts that a visitor might get to see while they're on the beach.
There are now more than 150 of them, so your chances are going up that you will run into somebody in a bright teal blue shirt, and it says, "I know shells, ask me." They are our shell ambassadors, and to be a shell ambassador, you have had to go through a fairly extensive training program at the museum. You get tested, and you have to pass knowing the 50 most common shells, which is what stresses out our shell ambassadors most when they come in for training is, can I pass the test? There are 3 different tests that they have to pass. They're provided with information not only about shells, but about beach ecology. They have information and receive cards on what to do if you find a problem. Say there's a stranded sea turtle, or who do you call, or you see, I don't know, a raccoon with issues. So they have a lot of information above and beyond what we teach them for shells and shelling. But really their goal on the beach is to help people understand that these are living animals. I laugh that we have signs on every beach saying no live shell collecting. And what I realized is 9 out of 10 people don't know that a shell is alive. So that sign is completely meaningless. Mm-hmm. They were like, what's a live shell? So shell ambassadors, if they do nothing else, we want them to show people how wonderful our beaches are, how teeming with life they are, and to share some of their passion and knowledge. And they're having a great time doing it. And it doesn't matter whether they're talking to somebody who's 3 or 80.
Right.
We want people to go home and have a quality experience on Sanibel, not only learn something, but when you think about it, when you go on vacation, what you bring home and you talk to people most about is the interactions you had with people who live there.
For sure.
For sure. And so you come to Sanibel for shells. If you just are looking for gorgeous white beaches, Florida's full of them. You come here because of shells. That's why people select us. So how much better an experience will you have and go back and talk to people about the importance of our islands, the importance of our waters, than if you had a 15-minute conversation with somebody in a bright blue shirt who made you feel welcome and taught you stuff and helped you find shells and just made your beach experience really incredibly different and memorable.
Fantastic. And I'm sure they get a lot out of it too.
Oh, they love it. They love it. The only thing is they've learned that if they're wearing their shirts, they have to not be quite as competitive. One shell ambassador did say, when I'm wearing my shirt, I really behave myself. If I see that Junonia down there and somebody else is going for it, I let them.
That's funny. Okay, and going back to the Junonia, tell us a little bit about, this is big news, Rebecca Mensch.
Yes, I told Rebecca, go find me a Junonia, and she did. We started talking about this because increasingly, as the museum looks at adding aquariums to the museum, we realized that it's our iconic shell, and no one. When I started looking for pictures of a Junonia to talk to people about, gee, we're going to build an aquarium, we'd like to have Junonias, I could not find one online. I could not find a picture of a living Junonia anywhere. I mean, I'm Googling everything. And Jose, our science director, remembered seeing a picture from years ago, but it was black and white and he couldn't find it. There's no video at all. So Greg Herbert, who is on our board, he is doing a mapping of mollusks in the Gulf of Mexico, and he invited Rebecca to go on his research trip with him. And she did, and my assignment to her was, if you can, see if you can bring us back a Junonia. Well, she brought us back 3.
Wow.
They are on loan from the university. We will have to return them to the university because they're part of the research study. But it's the first time we're publishing now video of live Junonias, and it's never been done before. So it's fascinating.
if that's the case, how much can they really know about? I mean, do you know about lifespan? Do you know
Nobody knows anything about most of these creatures. We get asked all the time, how old is this shell? You know, you see a lightning rock. How old is this? No research has ever been done.
Really?
It's,
even in this day and age, isn't it?
The Shell Museum is taking the forefront. We are the only institution in the United States, that's why we're the National Shell Museum, that is focused on saying we need to understand these animals. We need to understand this critical component of the ocean. We are starting to do that work ourselves, but no, very, very little exists. You can look at other aquariums. You can look at universities.
That's incredible.
They've just never been studied.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so she went out. So she went on this joint mission. She came back, and So, what are you actually going to do with the Junonias? They're going to be on display, or
they're not on display to the public at this point because they're part of our research work. That said, we wanted to share them with some of our equally crazy shell people.
Yeah.
And the first question we had was, what do they eat, and can we keep them alive? Because if we want to eventually have them in our aquarium full time, we need to know how to husband them, how to keep them happy, healthy, and thriving, and ideally breeding and that kind of thing. And none of that work is published. So Rebecca,
excuse my ignorance, is there a male and female?
Oh yes,
there is. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So Rebecca started doing research and started trying. Will you eat this? Will you eat this? Will you eat this? And there was some research that was done, I think in the 1960s or 70s. A gentleman had a Junonia and said that it ate lettered olives, which was a huge relief for me at 3:00 in the morning, saying, yes, we have that. It's local. We can find them. We have a collecting permit, so we're allowed to take them alive. And we did put a Junonia in a small container with a lettered olive. And lo and behold, we came back the next morning and the Junonia was still there and the olive shell was now empty. So
wow,
good for the Junonia, not so good for the olive. But we are now able to know that we can feed them and keep them alive. And they only eat probably maybe once a month.
Wow.
So
who'd have thought that guy from the 60s could have such an impact?
Such an impact,
so
yes.
many years later.
Yes, because
50 years later.
Yeah, we would have taken us a lot of time probably to get to an olive.
Maybe a few specimens.
And we might have gone through a few specimens to do that. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, so that was fun. And there's all kinds of other things about the Junonia that we are learning that we will eventually publish.
Fantastic, fantastic. So each day of the week you have a different special program.
We do.
So Monday, just walk us through. The Monday is Carolyn's collection.
Carolyn's collection, or if Carolyn isn't there, we do someone else talks about their collection, and that's really a program done from a collector's standpoint. And Carolyn is wonderful, a great personality from New Jersey. She's just she's fun. She runs a great program, and her interest is really in. She has purchased shells. She collects shells from around the world. She talks to visitors about what she likes, why they're unusual, and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. So, it's about her own personal collection.
It's her own personal collection. She's been a volunteer with us for many years.
Wow. Yeah. And then, so Tuesday is Mollusk
Matinee.
Matinee, yes.
Mollusk Matinee is a changing program. It's usually done by one of our senior staff folks, and a huge variety of topics, and it changes all the time.
And then Wednesday, shell jewelry.
Oh, you don't want to miss that. Shell jewelry is Anne does that, and she's one of our volunteers. And I think last week, it was the week after Easter, she made with people 150 some necklaces in about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Oh, really?
She starts off with a sort of a starter necklace, and she is an artist in her own right. She's a fabric artist and does amazing work. So I would happily wear the start that she gives people as jewelry and be happy with it. But people come out of that Wednesday session, and they have made a piece of artwork that people are really proud to wear, and it's fun. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, old or young. I see men walking around with these necklaces.
Oh, that's awesome!
And they're gorgeous. So that's really, really a fun one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then tell us about Thursday, Collection Connection.
Thursday is it's so much fun. It's Jose, who's our science director, or Rebecca. They will bring down several items from the collection or a number of related species. So you never know quite what you're going to see, but it's we have 750,000 shells in the collection, so they have a lot to choose from. So it might be comparing our local pen shell that everyone sees here to the ones that are in the Mediterranean are 4 feet, 3 feet long. Or it could be, Australian trumpets, or it could be the nacre inside an abalone. It's just a whole changing array of the diversity that you might not be aware of.
Cool.
So it's really fun, and it's
Very
done by
cool.
our scientists.
Friday, Fossil Dig.
Oh, Fossil Dig is... I love running an organization where our facilities manager, Lauren, is also a molluscan fossil expert. Now, who would expect that when I was hiring a facilities manager, he would come with a skill set of being a fossils expert? He actually had donated, when the museum first started, he had donated a number of fossils to the museum. And he offered a while back, he said, we could do a fossil dig. And I said, great. So every Friday he sets up, it looks like a large sandbox, and people can go through and dig for fossils, and then he will help them identify them, and then they can take some home.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's really fun.
Okay. And then lastly, Saturday Science Saturday.
Saturday Science is an opportunity. Saturdays often, if you have local kids, obviously they're off school, it's more of a hands-on learning experience. So you get to hold a lightning whelk and look at lightning whelk and egg cases, and learn a lot more about the shell and the taxonomy of the shell.
Gotcha.
But it's a hands-on design for both adults and kids.
Gotcha. So, is there any days? Are there any days better to go than others? What are your busiest days of the week?
Our busiest days of the week tend to be we build like Wednesday and then Thursday, Friday. Surprisingly, the weekends are often slower for us than the weekdays are.
And that's a lot to do with this island. Most of the changeover days.
Changeovers days is Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, so
Yeah.
it's the same for everybody, I think.
But I really think you should base it on the activities that you're most interested in and the age of it, particularly if you're bringing visitors, the age of the visitors that you have.
And you've got, the youngest that could get enjoyment out of it. Is it good for toddlers as well?
Yeah, I think toddlers like it. I think when you get to be 5, 6, and 7, you start to love it. At that age, it's at the age where if they can do a simple scavenger hunt with help, or every day we have, you can make shell critters, shell crafting. So as long as mom or dad are willing to help you with a glue gun, I love seeing all these 3-year-olds with glue guns. But we have that going on every afternoon. So there's always something for the kids. And our live tank talks are very popular. And if we have a full room, we let the kids come right up to the tank so that they can see it.
Perfect. And what is the admission for? The
admission is $15 per person for adults. And we also have discounts for AAA or senior discounts as well, and then I think it's $9 for the next tier down, and then $7.
And where
free for kids under 5.
What is your URL? What's the best place to find out about all the
shellmuseum.org? We're really easy. Our website is shellmuseum.org, or if you just Google Shell Museum, we pop up top on the list of Google. Pretty close.
Wow.
I think Shell Oil still beats us, but we're gunning for them.
Yeah, you need to go after that one.
We're number 2.
So you offer daily beach walks as well. Tell me a little
Yes,
bit
we
about
do.
that. Where do you meet and what's
You meet at the Island Inn. You have to have reservations for it because we have a limited, in order to keep a quality beach walk experience, we have a limited number of places for that. But if you take the beach walk, it gives you half price admission to the museum. So it's a
cool.
great deal. Or if you come to the museum first and then decide you want to do the beach walk, it's half price. They're the same price, so you're just saving money either way. You can make a reservation online, and you take the beach walk. You meet in the front of the Island Inn, and they last for about an hour. And it's a perfect way to start your Sanibel experience. It gives you sort of an orientation to the whole beach and everything that's there, so that then if you're spending the next week or month on your vacation, I guarantee you will see more, you will appreciate it more, you will have more fun if you do a beach walk first.
Yeah. So, and is that done by the blue-shirted?
No, it's done by one of our staff members.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's done by one of our biologists, and they're out there so they can answer any of your questions. And it's not just me saying, do it first. Go to TripAdvisor, read all of the ratings for the museum. We hear it over and over and over again.
Well,
I wish I had done it first.
As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking I've lived here for 20 years, and I wish I'd have done it 20 years ago, because my knowledge of the shells that are on this beach is very limited.
Come out anytime, be our guest, and come out and do a beach walk.
Okay. A wonderful feature about the website is the shell guide. Tell me about that. I mean,
we have a couple of things on the website. The larger one is you have access through our website to our entire collection. So that is every shell that we have, and that's accessible. We have a partnership with iDigBio that matches us to other natural history museums with their collections. But what's most valuable to people who are visiting here is if you go to our website, right at the top is a link to the Southwest Florida Shell Guide. And we have gorgeous pictures of almost all of the 300 some local species that you will find on Sanibel and Captiva. So if you have any questions, you can pull those up by common name, or you can search your way through them.
Okay, my photographer in me is coming out.
Yeah.
Is that pictures you've taken yourself, or
yes,
is it,
they are all proprietary photos. Dr. Jose Leal, our science director, takes amazing photographs of shells, and we have the lab set up to do it at the museum.
Fantastic.
So we really have the highest quality photography of those shells.
Perfect.
That we're working
and
on.
is that something that is it just free for people to use? Or?
Yeah, it's just free. It's online. It's on the website. And then we are in the process of developing right now an application. So on your phone, you'll be able to click on a shell, take a picture of it. It sends it to our app, and our app will identify the shell for you. So that's the next.
How cool.
That's the next stage. So I'm confident that people will be dropping their cell phones in the water all over.
And you're going to be responsible.
All over Sanibel, and I'll be responsible. But we're actually crowd helping us with that, because we're using the application uses facial recognition software. So we are recognizing shells. So for instance, to get a lightning walk, we'll need to take 10,000 pictures of different lightning walks
to get
to get enough
degree.
So that even if you're taking a picture of it in the sand or pointed this way or turned that way, it will still recognize that as a lightning walk. So it's very cool. And
that's awesome.
We're in beta testing now, and we should have that, I hope, up and running by the end of the year.
End of the year 2018.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's you've got obviously the museum, obviously, which you can get into, but you've also got a store. You don't even need admission to the museum to go to the store.
You do not need admission to the store. If you haven't been to our store, you have really, really missed a great deal. I am not a retail person. I could not buy for a store to save my life. But Gretchen, who is our retail and operations manager, really has an eye. She has done amazing things with our store. I would put our store up against any, not just museum store, but any gift shop anywhere. It's incredible. And her goal is to always have things in our store that you cannot find anywhere else on Sanibel or locally. We send her to buying trips around the country. And if you're just thinking, if you need a housewarming gift or something, you're going to visit somebody in their condo, stop by the store, because I guarantee you will find something that is exquisite.
And what sort of things? I mean, like, is it just you think of a shell store, or a shell museum type store, but it's quite a wide range of.
Well, the
products,
first thing you won't find is bins and bins of empty shells.
Okay.
The museum, because of the risks facing mollusks around the world, the museum board of trustees adopted 2 years ago a sustainability policy. So any shell that you find in our store, one of our volunteers or staff found and collected empty on Sanibel, or we can verify that it was harvested from a sustainable food source, or that it was empty. So you won't find a lot of the shell jewelry from other places. We have our own line of jewelry now that we can verify was from local shells that were collected empty. But you will find amazing shell motifs on everything.
Okay.
And a lot of gorgeous ceramics, a lot of glassware. We sell a lot of soaps. We have the basics. We have, postcards and note cards. And
I guess what I'm saying is make sure you go in there, because
something
it's not
for
the
everybody.
obvious things
It
that you
is
would think
not.
that,
It is not.
that are in there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, you got exciting things happening in the future. Tell us a little bit about the aquarium. What have you got?
We learned that people need to go eye to eye or nose to siphon or whatever with these animals in order to really understand a lot about them. They need to say, oh my goodness, look, it has eyes. And then we've got them. And then they can start to hear the environmental message. So to do that, we decided that we're going to take our ground floor, which right now is non-air conditioned storage, and we're going to build the first ever aquarium devoted to mollusks. So
Wow.
that will be not only the shells you think of, but giant Pacific octopus and cuttlefish and nudibranchs and squid, and think about nautilus and giant clams and all kinds of amazing creatures that
So
will be
you're
in
going to have your work
tanks.
cut out for you, even on the feeding side, and even that in itself could be some cutting edge research
absolutely.
into finding how you could keep these.
We're
animals,
already doing that, because you have to not only have the display animal, as we call, and then you have to raise the food that eats, and then to do that you have to raise the food that eats.
And there's no
So
shops for that, is
you
there?
end up going way down the food web. So yes, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to do to keep all of those animals alive. And then when you start talking about giant Pacific octopus, those creatures are as smart as your average dog or pig.
Really?
Yes, Rebecca, one of our marine biologists, has been learning to clicker train. You can clicker train them like a dog. And she's been practicing on my dog, and I can definitively say that an octopus is smarter than my dog. Yes, you have to, all of that has to be considered when you're building this kind of facility, and no one else has ever done it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
it's very
exciting
fun.
stuff. So when can we look for the
We
aquarium?
want to break ground in January of 2019 and open it by Christmas of 2019. So I'm not promising Christmas, but certainly by 2020, we would like to
Wow.
have it open. Yeah.
Soon, relatively soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so you personally, obviously, anything that I'm going to say to ask you, what you would like to do, what do you love to do on the islands outside of the Shell Museum? Obviously, you're going to say the Shell Museum or one of the walks, but if you weren't there,
If I wasn't there,
yeah, what would you?
well, the first thing I have to say is shelling, because I don't get out very much. Everybody always goes shelling and brings me stuff, and I don't see it. No, I'm a paddleboarder. So in my time, I love to paddleboard. I love to go off of, I call it Algiers Beach, but it's
yeah, I know.
yeah.
Algiers City
the
Park
City
is,
Park.
is yeah.
Because it's so close there. It's really easy to park, pay for parking, and then just load your board right into the water. So that's
I believe that's the second time we've mentioned Algiers in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
as
that's
being the best kept
hard
secret.
to find parking in season.
Yeah.
But off season, I just like it because I don't have to carry my board very far.
Yeah.
I love going just off island to Bunch Beach because it's a preserve, so you can't take anything from Bunch Beach. But if you want to see living creatures of all kinds, birds, mollusks, fish, everything, it is just teeming with life.
And Bunch Beach is very close to where we live, and
Yeah.
it's one of our regular walks.
So it's
and
fun.
It's got an amazing history behind it.
Yes, it does.
And even our kids, when they were little, went down there with the drag nets or the nets with a group of teachers, and we were just thinking, how much are they going to find? And
They find
literally they
everything.
pulled out
Yeah.
I think the seahorse, everything. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And I thank you for saying. I almost recommend that if first of all, it's not a sandy beach. Don't go with the vision that it's going to be this gorgeous white powder sand, because it's not. It's sort of a dark gray silty beach. But if you have little kids, first of all, that sand builds better, and also you're going to find a lot more stuff alive more easily. Yeah. So that's a really fun place to go.
And they've just improved it now. There's more parking. There's
more parking, and you can take a great kayak. You can rent kayaks right there. And they have sort of through the mangroves and stuff. That's a lot of fun.
Which is part of the Blue Way again, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, the Blue Way is a great thing to do. Any stretch of it.
And you're the second person in as many weeks that's mentioned paddleboarding. So Bruce was telling us all about it and how it's his favourite thing to do to keep fit. So we have to do it. I'm
part of their meetup paddleboard group, but I always seem to have a conflict.
So. Oh, really? Okay. All right. We need to do it.
And paddleboarding off the Causeway Islands is fun too.
Is it? Yeah. You've always got protection.
You've always got protection
from the weather. So. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's cool. Okay, Dorie, we have one last thing. One last thing. Yeah, you are officially an island girl now. You're a lady of the island. So what I need to do is see if you can get a note out of this, because everybody before you that's ever sat in that seat has done it. It's actually a queen conch.
This is a queen conch?
Actually, yeah. It's not native.
This is not native here. Our waters are too cold, but you could find them in the Florida Keys.
Is there a conch that we can get that is...
Well, the Florida horse conch is our local conch.
Can it be?
I don't know. I have to just say, who, by the way, you should have him on, because he blows a mean conch.
Really? Okay.
And yes, he can blow a trident trumpet, so I'm sure he could blow a Florida horse conch.
Okay, that's it. Challenge
on. Absolutely
okay,
sure
I'm going to help along with it.
Okay, I have actually never tried this.
Okay, here we go. That's new for everybody. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Dorie's got some work to go, so have I, but thank you very much for coming, Dorie.
I don't have enough hot air. You clearly do.
Very nice to meet you. Good luck, and we'll be in to see the aquarium.
Thank you.
As soon as it's finished.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
All righty, thank you.
Good stuff, guys. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Insider's Guide to the Islands. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.